If your health of a life coach has ever wondered about running a summit but feels like summits are too big and too much for your heart-centered, highly sensitive nature, then have I got a treat for you today. I'm interviewing the amazing Michelle Ponvert, and she's telling us all about how to run a simple audio summit. Let's dive in. Welcome, Michelle, back to the Wholehearted Business Show. This is your second time on the show. We've had you on before. But before we get into the topic of today, which is Micro Audio Summit, which I'm so excited to talk to you about, would you like to just introduce yourself to everyone and tell everyone a bit about yourself and your business?
Yeah, so hi, thanks so much for having me back on. My name is Michelle Ponvert. I know the French pronunciation is really tricky, so Ponvert also works just fine. And these days I style myself as an easy events expert. Basically, I help people put on collaborative events like summits and bundles and other sort of ways of collaborating with people that are much more minimalist in approach. So rather than your big sort of whiz-bang virtual summits you might be used to, we really scale things back. We focus on just the essentials that make these events work and strip away the fuss and the frills so they become actually manageable and doable to put on, but also really remind us to focus on the part of these collaborations that make them work, which is the relationship, the connection, the community building that we're doing. So that's kind of what I spend my days doing. I host my own events fairly regularly, but I also teach on them. I have some self-study programs, and I also work with people one-on-one as well.
Fantastic. And just to give people a little bit of background, Michelle helped me when I ran my first audio summit, which was Search and Connect back in June 2025. So some of you guys who might have been around since then might have remembered that micro audio summit. So Michelle was amazing. It's helping me put that together, and I'm sure we'll talk about some of the themes that came up for me when we were putting that together. But for anyone who's unclear on what we're talking about when we're talking about these kind of collaborative events, would you like to explain a little bit about what this looks like? About, I think, kind of primarily what these kind of events are in the online space for anyone who's not familiar, because some people will not be familiar at all, and then more specifically about your kind of micro audio approach and how that differs.
Yeah, so when we think about collaborative events, we're really just putting on an event. We're doing something publicly, but we're doing it with other people. So rather than it just being your business that does like a workshop or a webinar or a challenge, we invite some collaborators in to sort of almost co-host it with us, be engaging participants in the experience, share their value, share their content with our audience, usually for free, in exchange for visibility and opportunities to connect with this audience you're growing. So most people would put together something like a bundle or a summit. Those are kind of the two big ones we think of when they're looking to grow their email list, when they're looking to boost their visibility and really become kind of a leader in their brand space. They might also do it as part of their pre-launch or sort of a sales marketing sort of side of things. I think they have many benefits beyond just that in your business, but that's sort of why usually business owners look to host these kinds of events. And they can look lots of different ways. We're maybe most familiar with things like free bundles, which are a giveaway collection of normally paid products that people will sign up for and get access for free, or virtual summits, which is basically like a conference that we have online. Lots of different people share their different stories, perspectives, often more just teaching style content for free for a very limited time. And people will sign up to access those trainings and kind of have access to those experts in that limited time. What I do that's a bit different, and the way I approach particularly audio summits, is rather than having people, show up for a video call or show up and watch video presentations, we only have the one medium to worry about. So we don't have video, we don't have to get, makeup on and put slides together. We're having our collaborators just share an audio clip. And that really helps reduce the strain on the participants, the people who are asking to collaborate with us. I find it also makes it a lot easier for the people who are tuning into our summits to actually consume the content we've created for them. It makes it much easier for people to actually listen on the go and sort of find time for those little clips throughout the day. I also encourage people to really, again, keep the events simple. One of the sort of common trappings of virtual summits and virtual bundles, the way they've been done, is that we add lots of stuff to them. We add live calls and prizes and quizzes and communities and all access passes that people can upgrade for with deadlines and launches. And all those different add-ons can be really good, can be strategic when your business and your event is ready for them. I think they often are the also reason that most small business owners hold themselves back from hosting these kinds of collaborations because it feels like an enormous project and it feels like it's maybe more than they can handle putting on. So the way I do it is we really just strip it back to the key pieces that matter, which is the valuable, interesting content on a really timely and engaging experience, like a theme that we want to have people engage on. Don't clog it up with lots of stuff and bells and whistles, and really just, again, focus on the relationship building, both between you and your collaborators and you and your new audience that you've been growing. And really focusing on, again, relationship building, connection has helped people who normally wouldn't host these events actually do the doing and host them. But I think also helps us get very different results rather than, potentially throwing everything we've got at one summit a year, maybe adding, 2,000 people to our email list who then go on to unsubscribe most of the times. I find when we have smaller, more intentional events like this, we may have less people sign up, but we often have far more engaged people actually interact with our brand. They go on to become more loyal subscribers and audience members. And they're also really great opportunities to engage with the people you already have in your circle, help you re-engage your existing audience, create those networks. And I find that often has a much bigger sort of long-term trickle-on effect than just like one big blowout summit. So I'm looking at kind of, again, that smaller event to build momentum, to create these kind of connection opportunities for you, and to help you also rip the band-aid of collaborating in a way that's less overwhelming than a lot of the other options out there.
Yeah, absolutely love that. It's amazing. And obviously, a lot of the people in my community are heart-centered, highly sensitive, neurodiverse. I think the reasons why this kind of approach, your approach, is more helpful for them is pretty obvious, but just do you want to kind of run through some of the key things? I mean, obviously the fact that it's smaller and less overwhelming, but is there anything else that comes to mind in terms of, for people who might have some just worries about running something like this? And I mean, I'll talk quickly about some of the worries that I had, and then we can take it from there. So, as I said at the start, I ran my first audio summit in June 2025. And, it was something that had been on my to-do list for like 2 years, and I'd just not done it because it was scary, because I lacked confidence. I worried that my email list wasn't big enough. I worried that people wouldn't want to collaborate with me. I worried about the organization of it, all of those things. And again, I think for people who are quite highly sensitive, who worry, like, who kind of like don't really own their own awesomeness, and struggle to kind of really see themselves as like a big deal, I think it can feel like quite a scary thing. It did for me until I worked with you to help me figure it out. But anyway, anything else that, when you think about why this is a particularly good way of dipping your toe in, if you like, for people who are, like highly sensitive heart centers. Is there anything else that jumps to mind for you around this that made
Yeah, well,
it difficult?
I'll say I designed these events for me first. I am
Yeah.
also highly sensitive, neurodivergent. I have very limited work time. I also have really fluctuating energy levels throughout the month and years, and they're not that predictable. So this was born from problem solving my own marketing and sales sort of strategy first. But I really think the piece that makes this feel more manageable is that we're working with the capacities that you have. We're designing events that fit you rather than shoving you into a sort of prescriptive format that may or may not make sense for you. So the parts of this that I think really appeal to people like us, people who are highly sensitive, neurodivergent, is that we aren't asking people to show up live. We're not, holding space for people on a certain timeline. We're, really keeping the back end simple for you to put together. There's no really complicated tech. There's nothing super draining in the sort of setup side. And then the human management piece, as much as possible, we try and keep that simple by focusing on the relationships and not trying to extract too much from those collaborators. But also the way that I kind of walk people through is we create relationships, we have dialogues with our we communicate with our collaborators the whole way through, and we really approach it as peer to peer. Even when we're working with people who are, quote unquote, bigger than us or quote unquote more successful, they're still people and people have things going on just like we do. And I really think coming at it from this like human to human approach takes a lot of the nervousness around asking people to collaborate. The other thing that really helped me and something I pass along a lot is reframing these events because they're collaborative, to not be about you. Because when we're hosting like a webinar or a challenge where it is just you, it is your show. It is you that has to go out there and tell people how great this thing is. However, when we bring other people into the mix, there's this fun little mindset switch you can really work for yourself, that it's not about you, it's about showcasing these other people, this thing you've created together, this community experience that you're curating. But it's not just you. It's not the you show. It's the show that you've helped create. And I think that little shift of it not being about you or me really helps people like us who maybe struggle with rejection sensitivity, struggle with being really introverted. It shifts it away from being like, buy my thing, look at my thing, to, wow, look at all these amazing people and all these interesting things they have to share with you that I genuinely think you're going to like because I put them together specifically for you. I think that shift really helps it feel less scary because it isn't about you.
Yes, no, I love that. And I think I love that viewpoint, that take on it. And I think seeing you as curating something other than this being about you, like I think that is such an important shift. And again, exactly when you're highly sensitive and all of this stuff's flying around in your mind, I think that's a really profound way of looking at it. And it's not just about, you're not having to carry the entire thing. Yes, you're organizing it. Yes, you're curating it. Yes, you're kind of setting the direction of it, but you don't have to carry it all by yourself. And actually, like you're also not asking so much from other people as well. I think this is another thing, isn't it? We feel like there has to be this exchange, this equal exchange. But actually what you're asking people for is a short audio clip in the version of this that you do. You're not asking people for like loads and loads and loads. So I think it makes it easier to ask to request that from people when you are someone who is more highly sensitive and you worry about, asking for too much perhaps. And I'd love to talk a little bit as well about the fact that this is audio
Mhm.
and why that's so powerful. Again, not just for you putting this together and how much easier that is than doing it any other way, but also the benefits back to the listeners as well.
Yeah, I think personally, I love private podcasts. I love podcasts in general because I think it's a different medium entirely than watching a presentation. When we watch a presentation, it's very easy to have our focus drift, to struggle to sit there and watch the slides and like really engage because it is a big demand on our systems to like put all of our focus on this thing for maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes. What I love about the private podcast format in particular is that it's designed not to ask for all of your attention all at once. You're actually encouraged to listen to these kinds of things while doing something else. And I think that permission to fit this into the life you actually live, listen to these sort of audio clips in your experience, in your life, feels way less pressure for the people who've signed up to listen to this event because they can just listen when they have time. But it's also a very intimate medium. Hearing someone's voice, especially as, go about your house doing your laundry or go for a walk, it feels intimate. It feels like a real conversation, like you're listening to voice notes from friends. And I think it builds relationships in a very different way than, again, a polished, put together presentation with beautiful slides. It's a very, almost like arresting change in what we're used to from a marketing perspective. We're used to things feeling shiny and big and polished and very shouty. And this is almost the opposite. It's quiet and introspective and personal. And I think that does something very different. It really gives you that opportunity to like think for yourself, to reflect, to apply these ideas. One of the big things I teach is not to only ask people to present their information, to share knowledge, but to also share experiences and share stories. And I think especially in this medium where we're inviting people to listen as they're going about their days, we can have a much more profound connection with someone when we hear their story, when we hear why they learned that lesson and how they learned it and how they came to it in a very different way than when we're, sitting watching a polished presentation. And I found, especially with the events I host, engaging in these kind of story-based audio events, we build up this sense of community connection around these stories. Like, we're humans, we love hearing stories, and we really get emotionally engaged with them. And it builds a sense of excitement and kind of inspiration around the event that can really have something big for the people participating as well. And I've loved seeing how much those things spark ideas and spark excitement that I just don't see in traditional summits because you're just given information, you're adding things to your to-do list. You're like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. But it doesn't inspire you to do something. It doesn't inspire you to think differently. And these kinds of smaller, audio-focused, story-based events inspire inspiration rather than requesting action. And I think that's a very different shift and a very different experience as a marketer to encourage people to want to work with you because you're not just adding to their to-do list, you're inspiring them to do something they want to do. And it's a very different place to leave them at the end of this kind of event too.
Yes. Oh, all of that. So many factors. I think that is such an important part of this. And obviously the summit that I did was more information-y. And I
Mm,
think I mean, we've just chatted, haven't we, about the experiences that I had of running mine, and it was amazing. But I think if I was going to do it again, I would do it around more of a theme that is
mm,
broader and more, yeah, more about stories and more about yeah, like I think that I think there's definitely a place for like the more kind of like teachy, like this is how you do things, or this is what
mhm,
you need to understand or know. Like I think there's a place for that. But I think what you've done beautifully with your summits is this kind of like it's the concept that you come up with. I think is really great, and how that. What I love about yours as well is that the concept that you come up with, or the concepts that you come up with, reinforce your brand and
mm,
your messaging. And one of my favorite topics to talk about at the moment is messaging. And I think the way that these kind of events can actually like reinforce your message is really powerful as well. So yes, it's amazing. And as you say about the audio medium being
mm.
so much more intimate. Yeah, I love all of it. As everyone can probably tell, I'm a massive fan of all of this stuff.
Oh, thank you. I do think it's an art to figure out the right sort of topics for our events. And we can host events for so many different reasons. You know, your event was a pre-launch summit. Like the purpose of your event was to educate people and warm them up for a potential further transformation in your paid offer. So it makes sense that was presentations. Well, if we're trying to, as you say, reinforce your messaging, build visibility, build momentum behind your brand, we might want to focus on something quite different. And that's what I mean by having these frameworks of how to host an event like this, but so much flexibility within that to apply it to your brand, your business, your sort of goals, what you're aiming for. We can really have a lot of fun with these. And with event topics specifically, I think there is something important about it feeling exciting to you,
Yeah.
having it be a question you're trying to answer or a thing that's on your mind, something that you're passionate about in your industry. I think that spark can really make or break an event. Like
Yeah.
if you're not interested in it, if it feels too high level, too generic, too vague, it shows and people can tell when you've got something you're excited about and you're lit up about, it really makes all the difference. So I think nailing the topic is like one of the key things to make your event really like successful and enjoyable for you and your audience too.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And then for anyone who's listening who might be thinking, right, this sounds amazing. It sounds like something I could actually do. Even though I'm introverted, like it sounds like something I can actually achieve. In terms of the organizing something like the tech of something like this, what could people expect? I mean, I know obviously it's going to be different depending on how people approach it, but what would people be expecting in terms of like the time and the amount of tech and things like that would be involved in your experience?
For sure. Yeah. So it does vary, but I find timing is often quite dictated by how many people you invite to participate in your summit. So if you have 30 speakers, it's a much bigger project than if you have 10. So that's one place we start to see sort of the project grow or expand. I think also the timeline you give yourself will dictate, how much time you need per week. But I find typically these kinds of events come together in sort of a 20 to 60-hour timeline total, depending on a lot of different factors, based on how many people, the type of event, all those things. I would say they tend to come together faster when you're used to already launching something. If you've already got some kind of systems for emailing people and marketing, those systems being in place will help cut down because it's a lot of the same systems for launching an event like a summit as it is for launching a product. So that kind of helps. And a lot of the tech will overlap as well. I tend not to recommend buying any new tech for your audio summits, except for maybe the audio hosting if you don't have that already. So we can set your registration pages up on your website. We can use something like Thrivecart. We can use the email marketing systems you use. I'm really big on not investing tons of extra money in the event because it's not designed in its purpose to be a money maker itself. So I don't want you going into the negative in creating it, because really these events work so well as a primer, as a nurturer kind of mechanism versus a money maker. So that's why I want you to keep the tech simple, use what you've got as much as possible, cobble together what you have, keep it simple, and then let your launch be the launch. Let your launch actually sell the stuff you have in your business rather than trying to tack on a bunch of extra things to bring money into the event itself. I find it just tends to make more fuss than it's worth, and you typically won't earn as much than if you just launch your own stuff. So I keep the tech really simple. In my program, I walk you through tech tutorials of all that stuff, but I personally just use the tech I was already using. So ThriveCut for the registration pages. I now use Flowdesk for my emails, Hello Audio to host the audio, like the podcast, and that's it. Like it's no more than that. It's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
simple.
yeah,
And then, yeah, timing and scope is very variable, but I think it can be as big or as small as you want it to be and as much capacity as you have. I think it's about also not letting it get bigger if you've given yourself more time.
yeah,
That's the big trap I see people fall in, is they go, oh, I've got, 8 weeks to put this together. I will work every hour of my available work time on the summit for those 8 weeks. And I promise you, you're overcomplicating it if that's happening.
yeah,
It's mostly about, simple systems to promote it and deliver it. And then it's about people management. And it really doesn't need to be much more than that.
yeah, yeah. No, well, this is it. And obviously, my experience of running one was that it's not as onerous, I think, as you think it's going to be. And obviously, part of that is dictated by how big it is. I know we had the conversation earlier when we were talking about, I had 9 speakers, I think, in the end for mine. And that was a really manageable amount. And I think you can start small, can't you? You can start really small. You could start smaller, I suppose, if you wanted to,
Mm.
start with a really small amount of collaborators. But it's a good step in the right, it's that kind of step, isn't it? And I think for us, highly sensitive people, trying to run like a massive summit with 50 speakers is going to just like completely burn you out, isn't it? So don't be afraid to start a bit smaller.
I highly encourage that, actually.
Yeah.
I think I would much rather see you host, 2, 3, 4 much smaller events throughout the year, build up those muscles, build up momentum, build up your confidence, and add layers to them as you do it more, than try and rip the band-aid off hosting one big thing a year with, as you said, 30, 40, 50 speakers. That's way too much for most of us to handle. I
Yeah.
find hosting like less complex, smaller scoped events, but maybe more frequently, has also better effects. Like you're on top of mind much more, you get more exposure, you're able to collaborate with different people in different ways because you can play with different topics, you can play with different formats. It gives you a lot more flexibility keeping these events, smaller in scope. And I think it also leans into, again, having this really interesting, engaging topic. If we have something super specific, I don't want to hear 30 people's different
Yeah.
perspectives on that. I probably only need, as you said, like 8, 9, 10 people is ample to start inspiring ideas. So it can be really intentional to keep these events small as well.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And then just kind of finally, in terms of the
Mhm.
benefits of running an event like this, we have touched on this, but obviously people tend to think about these collaborative events a bit about being about list growth or potential income generation if you are doing like the all access pass type of thing. But I know in our conversations, we've talked about how it's much, much broader. And I think actually looking beyond that is in terms of return on investment, if you like, with an event like this, it is much broader. But what would you say in your experience of working with people around putting on these kind of events? What would you say are like the range of outcomes that people could expect from running something like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think list growth is obviously the thing that usually gets people in. And I think it's one of the least interesting metrics to measure. You will grow your list just by the nature of collaborating. You're inviting people from another audience to engage with something on your audience and therefore getting the email. So it is good for that. And, using them as a pre-launch strategy like you did can definitely help your launches do better because you're nurturing, you're growing your list ahead of a promotion. Definitely interesting. What I find to be the bigger impact is opening up collaborations in your business in general. Actually starting collaborating in a true sense in your business has such wide-reaching impact on you as a person, but your work in general, because we're starting a conversation often with these events. We are saying, I've seen you do things. I've seen you on Instagram. I follow you. I'm in your email list. I've taken a course from you. I think you're interesting and I'd like to collaborate with you in this event. Inviting people to these kinds of collaborations starts the conversation, starts the relationship with them. And I find, I now invite people who have quote unquote much bigger audiences than me, and it opens a conversation. We have collaborations. I get into people's private communities and do guest sessions for them. I've been invited to podcasts. I get recommended in rooms I'm not part of. It really just starts these relationships with peers and with people who you admire. And I think that's such a big thing for business owners is we can't do this in a silo. We need those relationships and those connections. I think it also helps remind you that we're not just emailing, we're not just marketing to extract things from people. We're not just looking for sales, we're not just looking for subscribers. We actually need to nurture and engage and connect with these people that we've now collected together. And I think these kinds of events really help you get back in touch with your audience, help build a conversation, build something kind of communally for them, and really invite that connection back. And I think it can be like a really underrated side effect of this is you get tons of market research. You get to really see what problems people are dealing with, where their heads are at, what they're looking for, where they're in their sort of business or life journeys. And it can give you so much, confidence with your launches, confidence with your marketing, confidence with your messaging, just having that, again, more direct conversation connection with them. So I think the community piece is so big. And then finally, I think there is just a visibility thing of being someone who hosts events is you start to be thought of as someone who hosts events. People will kind of assume your business is of a certain size when you start hosting events, even if you're smaller than you think you are. Like it makes people think you're doing something. It makes people pay attention. It makes them see you a different way. Just like hosting a podcast, people sort of make assumptions there. And I think it can be a great way to kind of do the thing and then rise to the occasion and rise to becoming someone who does host events, does kind of do these visibility stunts, these big things in your business. I think it kind of helps you take that step because of what we shared before, that these kinds of events don't have to be about you. And I think they're a really great stepping stone in stepping into that sort of next level of business as well.
Yeah, I love that. I think there's definite mindset kind of up level that happens when you do that. And I think what comes with that is discomfort, and obviously I struggled with some discomfort when I was, running mine, like the feelings of not being enough and all that kind of stuff. But I think actually following through and doing it is so good for your confidence levels. It's so good for you really stepping into like the identity of someone who is for yourself, a bigger deal in the online business space. So I think even just for the confidence building, it is worth doing one of these events. And, again, one of the things that I would say about doing something like this is it's if you just see it like a big experiment. Don't get too fixated on one particular outcome. I think that's the much better way to approach it. To see, especially your first one, is to really see it as like a learning process that you're going to go through. But yes, it's again, me doing one is all down to Michelle because I would not have done one in a million years if I didn't have Michelle. Which brings me nicely on to Michelle has a course that she is going to be launching that is going to help you put one of these events on yourself. Would you like to tell everyone a bit about this? And there'll be a link in the description to go and check it out, everyone. So do go and check it out because honestly, these are great events. And if you are, again, someone in my community who resonates with being highly sensitive, heart-centered, neurodivergent, then this might be the right step for you to take in terms of collaboration. So over to you. Tell us about your course.
Oh, thank you. So the course is called Simple Audio Summit. I'm all about really like obvious names. It's to help you host a simple audio summit. I'm basically giving you my full process to put together these events, from coming up with the idea and strategizing the plan to finding the people, herding the humans, like getting all the stuff you need from them, putting together in the back end. I give you all like the tutorials and templates and everything, promoting it, and actually even giving yourself space after the event to reflect, to sort of profit from this experience you've created and really enjoy this experience you've made. The goal for me is that you can go through this process and then go through it again and again. We have this sort of process, this blueprint for you of all the back scenes sort of things you need to do, but it's so flexible for the kind of summit you want to host, whether you do want it to prime a launch like Laura's and have it be more informational, or whether you want to do something more like the ones I've been hosting where it is a bit more abstract, a bit more like topic kind of focused, and lead generation is really the kind of goal. So really where we start with is figuring out why you want to host this kind of summit in the first place. We dig into your goals, help you figure out together, like, what does this look like for you to achieve this aspiration you have for your summit, and then put all the pieces together. I love a template and I love a tutorial, so it's like no shortage of all that. It's basically everything you need to put it together. However, it is really stripped back from all the bells and whistles. So you'll find in the course modules on things like adding all access passes, getting sponsors, putting together community. However, the core strategy doesn't rely on you doing all of that. So it's there for you when you want to kind of grow into those steps. However, I encourage you to keep it simple. I encourage you to keep it relatively small the first time, get some sort of reps under you, get used to the system, get used to the process, and then you can come back to this over and over again and add in those layers as you go. So it's a really fun kind of blueprint that you can play with in.
Yeah, absolutely love that. And again, I think I love what you said there about, potentially actually running multiple small events. And I think in terms of the visibility and the nurturing and the message reinforcement, if you like, all that kind of stuff, I think would be amazing from running something and actually just embracing it, them being smaller. I think so. That's definitely got me thinking about what I might be running in the future. So I'm quite excited about doing something again. But thank you so much, Michelle. Where can people, obviously, I will put the link in the description for the course. So please go and check that out if you're interested in learning more from Michelle about this. And I would highly recommend her. Like massively. It will be an affiliate link, but go and check it out because Michelle's amazing and absolutely knows this stuff inside out and back to front. So do go and check that out. But otherwise, where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm really easy to find online because I'm the only Michelle Ponvert out there. So I'm Michelle Ponvert. Usually you'll see me on Threads. It's kind of the only social media I hang out on. Otherwise, I host my own events. I'm in a bajillion events. Like, I love events. I have a newsletter that I send out a couple times a week with all my sort of insider tips and suggestions for collaborations. And then I have very recently actually launched a private podcast. It's ongoing, where it's basically behind the scenes of my business and my events, and I give you sort of real time updates on what I'm working on, how it's going, what's sort of going on behind the scenes as I put together these events myself. So if you're curious, I think that would be a really fun place to start and kind of see the mechanics of someone, I'm a solo business owner, limited energy, neurodivergent, like what does it look like for someone like you to put these kind of events together too?
Love that so much. That's amazing. I will have all the links for everybody in the description as always. But thank you so much, Michelle. That has been so interesting. I'm so excited to see more people running events like this because they are amazing. Thank you.
Oh, me too. And if you do go on and host an audio summit, like, let me know. I love them. I love cheering people on. So that makes my heart so happy when I see them in the wild too.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.